Where in the world is my stimulus check? That is a question many Americans are asking as we get a new work week underway right now. And to talk about this and much more when it comes to money is Winnie Sun, Managing Director of the Sun Group Wealth Partners. Winnie, good afternoon or good morning to you, and thanks for joining us yet again.
Oh, love to be here with you, Mike.
Let's get right into it. Stimulus. Some people kind of doing the math still can't try to figure out how much am I actually going to get. If you could just start there with that breakdown.
Oh, absolutely. So many people are still waiting for their funds, right? So basically, the rule of thumb is if you're an individual, not married, you're single, and you make less than $75,000 a year, you should be receiving your full amount, which is $1,200. Now, if you're a married couple and you make under 150,000 combined, again, you should be receiving $1,200 times two, so that's 2,400. And if you follow under those guidelines and you have children and dependents under the age of 17, then it'll be $500 per child. So if you're a head of household, though, that is sort of the one difference. If you're a head of household, then that number is the threshold is 112,500 that you need to be underneath to also receive that full $1,200.
Okay, not to jump ahead, and I'll get back to those numbers in a second. But do you think, or do you foresee more stimulus coming into our lives down the road here?
Well, I hope and I think and I believe that there will be more funds coming ahead. And the reason that is because most people here in the United States are unable to survive on just $1,200, given that we're probably going to be looking at an extended stay home order in most of the states.
Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to the current stimulus, you talked about, if you have a child, you get a certain amount. So my question is, what if and I'll use myself as an example, just for those who maybe say I make too much money,
Mhm.
but I still feel like, do I get a credit for my child, or does that disappear as well if you once you get over that certain threshold?
Yeah, that's the unfortunate news. You could be in a situation where you still need funds, but depending on where you live, you could be in an area where the standard of living is significantly higher, like up in San Francisco, right? Silicon Valley, New York, and whatnot. Unfortunately, they don't have a standard of living adjustment. So if you make over that threshold, you could have 12 children, and none of your children, unfortunately, will get that $500 allotment as
Yeah.
well.
But then on the flip side, if I make under the threshold in my life and I have 12 children, then there's no I guess ceiling. I get a 500 for every child.
That's true. If you make under that number, Mike, you could have 20 children and you would get 500 times 20.
I have two, so I think two's good. 20 is a big
That's a
number.
lot of kids.
Back in the day, though, I think they did. I remember a lot of parents had 8, 10 children. So
Mhm.
when it comes to filing your tax return, if I did not file that return, I'm going to get a debit card. I'm going to get a physical check in the mail.
It just depends. I mean, I think the thing I would say is if you haven't filed your taxes yet for 2019 and 2018, maybe because you don't have to file, the thing I would do is I would recommend you jump on the irs.gov website today. And the reason that is because there's two areas of that site that are critical for you to jump on. Number one, if you don't have to file taxes because your income is below the threshold of having to file your taxes, then you'll need to go onto the IRS website and go to the non-filers pool and make sure that your information is in there. I wouldn't wait for the check to arrive in the mail. I'd be really proactive in this respect. I would go on there, make sure your bank information is on there. That they're going to tell you how to do that. And maybe if you're in a situation where you haven't received your funds yet, but you have filed your taxes, and you just want to make sure again that you're not getting that check mailed to you, but it's actually going to land in your bank account. You can also go to the Get My Payment, same website, really easy, and you can do that today.
Okay, cool. Last week I was reading like when they first launched this new tool on the IRS website to see, hey, where's my payment? Is it in the process of getting to me? This payment status not available was popping up for people. If that does pop up, what do you recommend here?
Well, unfortunately, if it doesn't pop up and you're not getting a status, most of the people in that situation is because you simply don't qualify. So it could be your income on your adjusted gross income for 2018 or 19, depending on if you file 19. It could just be too high. If you're in another situation that, for example, let's say you don't have any income and you're currently receiving like Social Security benefits because you're retired, or you're on disability, or on SSA or SSI, or you're receiving retirement plan benefits, railroad retirement plan benefits, then in that case, it's also going to show status unknown because you're going to actually be paid out differently. And that's going to be through like this SSA website and whatnot. So don't worry about that. You're still being calculated. You'll still get your funds. It's just not showing on the IRS portal under the, the get my payment area. So, but most importantly, make sure you sort of are aware of where you stand, because you do want to know if those funds are coming. And most importantly, I can't emphasize enough the importance of going in and inputting your bank account information if you don't think the IRS has that information, because you want to make sure that those funds go directly into your bank account and don't get lost in the mail.
For a lot of people out there, they take care of their older parents, and they live with them and they're in the same house.
Mhm.
For those parents, excuse me, those individuals, to go back to your Social Security, if they receive Social Security, but they don't file taxes and they are actually claimed as a dependent by their own children because they live in the house, do those older parents who get the Social Security, they do not qualify for this?
That's a really, really interesting question. So that is the issue here. If you're being claimed as a dependent, and let's say your children have higher income and exceed the amount that that you would usually receive funds. So then in that case, if you're dependent under someone like that, you probably won't be getting funds either. So unfortunately, that's a situation. As long as you're being claimed as a dependent and you're over the age of 17, then it does depend on the sort of the person who's claiming you as a dependent.
Okay.
Their ratios will matter for you.
Then on the flip side, there are older people, there are grandparents out there who take care of their grandchildren.
Hmm.
In some cases, would they, even though it's not technically their child, uh, would they get credit for the grandchild if they live under the same roof?
They would, as long as the grandchildren are under the age of 17 and the grandparent falls under the threshold of, like, let's say like grandma is able to receive the full $1,200, or grandma and grandpa 2,400. But then you also want to make sure that you're actually, if you, let's say for example, you qualify but you don't need to file taxes because you don't have that much income, then you still should go onto the website and then submit your information under the non-filers tool. And that's because the IRS doesn't necessarily know that your grandchildren are your dependents under the age of 17. So you want to make sure you go and be proactive, go on the website, submit their information, and make sure you claim them as your dependents.
Okay. What about college students? I mean, they're not on campus right now, learning from home or wherever they may be, but are they getting any financial help out there, whether it's this or something else?
Well, college students, that's a really interesting area because a lot of college students are struggling right now. And it depends on how they're being claimed. If they're being claimed as dependents for their parents, then that's sort of an issue because in most cases, college students are over the age of 17. So if they're being claimed as dependents, unfortunately, they're out of luck. They're not going to be receiving their $1,200 stimulus check. Now, if they are not claimed as dependents and they're just claimed as themselves, they should file their own taxes and they fall under those thresholds, then yes, they would be receiving that $1,200 allotment, or up to $1,200 allotment.
Okay. So let's say, I qualify, I'm getting a check, and I'm
Mhm.
checking the mailbox every day. I'm not getting a direct deposit, or even if I am getting a direct deposit and it's not showing up.
Mhm.
Um, the IRS has a site. Do you have to pick up the phone and call them, or do I just send off an email and say, hey, where's my money?
Well, the best thing to do is to check the website, check irs.gov, and then check under Get My Payment. And the reason that is because you can imagine, actually, they're sending out millions of checks or funds right now, and they're getting millions of inquiries because, the IRS in this process is sending out about $290 billion in stimulus funds. So, unfortunately, that website is only updated once per day. So instead of stressing out and checking every single day, check once a day. And if you need to go to the website and send out an inquiry, have them look into it, but don't do that more than once a day because it's really going to just stress you out.
And I think you said this last week when we talked, but it's tax free, right? 1,200, 1,200.
$1,200 is tax free. That is your money.
But
Absolutely.
do I claim it as income for next year when I file 2020?
Well, that's something you definitely should talk to your accountant about and whoever's filing your taxes. But in most cases, this is going to be treated as a tax credit. So you should talk to your accountant, or if you do your own taxes, same thing, but it's not going to be taxed, and most likely it'll just be forgiven.
Okay. Um, this is a good question. We want to bring up right now, and this is, let's say I haven't done my returns yet for this year,
Hmm.
but I did them last year.
Hmm.
And of course, there's that extension right now. So April 15th wasn't the day. You do have a few extra months. Let's say I don't qualify under my income from 2019, but 2018, I would qualify for some. So is the recommendation, hey, you don't, since you don't have to file taxes for another few months, go ahead and use what the numbers are from 2018?
Absolutely, because we want to make sure you get
Yeah.
your funds. So I would suggest in that case, you wait to file your 2019 taxes, go ahead and receive your stimulus funds based on your 2018 numbers, and you have plenty of time to do that. So receive your funds and then file.
Yeah. And when it comes to, and you touched on this a little bit earlier, but it doesn't matter where you live. You could live in the middle of America in Topeka, Kansas. You could live in, Palo Alto out in California, a wealthy spot, and a lot of people, spend a lot of money on rent there. But
Mhm.
um, there's no fluctuation when it comes to where you live and cost of living.
Unfortunately, there isn't. And I think that's sort of the big issue with this because, depending on where you live, the standard of living is so high. We read articles about individuals who work at Google who won't qualify, and literally they're security guards, and they're living out of their cars. So there's no real standard of living adjustment. I think that it requires some consideration, especially since certain people in certain cities just are getting priced out of not only housing, but now they're not getting much needed stimulus funds just to survive, like many people who are receiving those funds. So there needs to be sort of an understanding and adjustment and a little bit of empathy to different parts depending on where they live.
And it may be another reason why, another stimulus package could be approved by Congress and signed
Right.
by the president down
That's
the
sort of
road.
the talk is hopefully to get $2,000 per month going forward. And who knows if that'll pass, but I think there's definitely politicians out there trying to push for that right now.
And winning so many families in so many different situations. But when they do receive the funds, I mean, some people are just trying to put food on the table. It's like how best to spend that money. Well, for some, it's food
Mhm.
to bring into the house. For others, maybe they have the opportunity to save. Would you save it or would you spend it?
Well, I think, Mike, you're right. It really depends on the person, but I think in most cases it's smart right now to keep it in checking or saving something liquid, pay for medications if you need to, pay for groceries. It should be sort of like your survival financial fund right now. You can always invest it in the future. With money in your pocket, there's always something to invest. And we've even seen some people
Yeah.
who feel like they don't need the money giving it to charities. And that's great too. But I think you really have to right now stay a little bit more conservative because we don't know what's ahead of us in the short term. Long term, of course, after we get through this, if you want to invest it, then more power to you.
Okay, one for the road. I always like you to ask you about the 401ks. And, last week, the markets, some would argue it was a good week
Mhm.
for stocks and for investments. Hold on to it, especially for those kind of, 30, 40 years old. Just let it ride, right?
Or 401k for sure. If you have a job right now or you feel still stable, I would absolutely continue to let it grow. If you're in a situation where you can add to it, then take a look at that and consider doing so. If you are concerned, you can always decrease your contribution if you're still getting paid. But make that sort of your last place of having to go and take funds out of, because if you take from that, then it's taking from your retirement. So instead, look at other ways to be able, the stimulus funds is one way, but there's other ways if you need to that you can save them some money to build, survive and take care of yourself and your family.
All right. All great advice. Once again, from you, Winnie Sun, Managing Director of Sun Group Wealth Partners. We appreciate your time on this Monday, and we'll probably talk to you next week again.
Thank you, Mike. Stay
All right.
safe.
You too.